Hello everyone, this is Sammy from Health and Vitality, and as today's guest we have Chris Kendall from the Raw Advantage. Hello Chris, nice to have you with us today.
Thanks, man. Super stoked to be here. Blessing to connect with other people and share.
How are you now?
I'm doing really good. I'm a little bit sad because I left my smoothie over there, but other than that, I'm doing really great.
Oh, the tragedies of being a fruitarian.
I know, man. If I could just have a stretchy arm, it'd be all right, But I have these like non-flexible bones. It's unfortunate, but this is what we're dealing with. So just moving on from here.
For sure, for sure. So tell us, how was your health and whole lifestyle when you were growing up, and what led you to pursue healthier alternatives?
Wow. Well, that could be a long story or a short one. I'll make it kind of shorter. When I was younger, like most kids growing up, I felt fantastic. I attribute that mainly to I was fed a relatively healthy diet for sure. My parents tried to get a lot of fruits and vegetables in. It was lots of meat and other stuff, but still they tried to make it pretty clean. We didn't go to fast food all the time, and I was really active. Since I was about 5 years old, skateboarding caught my eye and my heart, and it became my biggest passion. I love to skateboard. And I was probably the most active kid I knew, so I think that helped me burn through anything I put in my body. Now, by the time I was about 16 and starting to get ready to move on my own, and I was like experimenting more with drinking and stuff like that, I moved out and started eating crappier and crappier and crappier. And because I ate a pretty healthy diet with my family, I think when I moved out, I was kind of interested to try a whole bunch of different stuff that I didn't eat quite as often. So I ended up eating fast food for most meals, drinking very often, started smoking cigarettes. By the time I was about 17 and a half, started smoking weed. And, by the time I was 18, I was almost an alcoholic. Like I was drinking a lot. It was usually 5 nights a week, and I didn't know what social drinking was. And, that's really what led me into exploring health and health creation in any way I possibly could, like mind, body, or spirit, because I needed it. I went from being a really energetic, happy, go-lucky kid, one of the happiest kids that I would bet you most of my friends would say, to internally being very depressed, my joints aching, feeling tired, not being excited to skateboard anymore, not being excited about life. I was depressed. I didn't like anything, and that led me to really, really seek change.
Cool, cool. How did you end up finding about raw foods?
Well, I found technically really, through yoga. I mean, of course, like I'd been eating some raw foods all my life. My parents, they provided us, lots of produce, and it was mostly like, bananas and apples and grapes and stuff like that. I loved all those a lot, but I didn't know the connection between food and health. I feel silly saying that now, but I really didn't. Wasn't really in my mind construct. And I first found yoga. I just found yoga, some videos by this dude, Rodney Yee. There were some like intermediate power yoga classes. And I started really diving into that. And that really opened up my heart to look more into yoga and into kind of like a holistic attitude about life. And that's what led me into diet. Because, the yogic diet is generally a vegetarian one. More conscious, talking about like not killing of animals, and that really sparked my interest. And from there I found a book called Fit for Life, which, it's really cool. The author Marilyn and Harvey Diamond, they tutored under the same hygienist as Doug Graham did, T.C. Fry. So they're both very well versed in natural hygiene and in raw food. And Fit for Life, it's the most sold book on nutrition ever. It's translated into more languages than any other book on nutrition. It's like billions sold, and it's really what I would say it's like raw food diet, kind of hygienic living light. Like it's for the masses. And that right there, once I read that, I was like, wow, like this is a huge passion equal to skateboarding. I started researching and reading, and nutrition became a big of an interest as skateboarding.
Cool. What were the first differences you noticed when moving from a cooked diet to an all-raw diet?
Well, my transition was it was to a degree over some years. There was about 5 years where I went from a predominantly crappy, cigarette, druggy, alcohol kind of diet to whole foods, like all whole foods, mostly raw. And there was about 6 months when I went vegan. This is 11 years ago. No, 10 and a half years ago. I went vegan, and for 6 months it was basically like fruit for breakfast, fruit for lunch, and a cooked dinner, and occasionally a cooked lunch, but it's all whole foods and simple. And then I met Doug Graham, and I went overnight to just 100% raw, and it felt like I was all of a sudden on rocket fuel. Like literally, it just all of a sudden felt like I had blinders on, and I just took them off, and I could just see in Technicolor. I could just see like everything more clearly. All of a sudden, I had like a blocker off my heart, and my heart just like felt like it's expanded out of my chest all the time, and I just felt like a force field came off of me, and I just felt so much more free, so much more connected, so much more energetic, so much more loving, you know. And that was immediate. That was huge because, you know, I can honestly say in the first 6 years that I was interested in health, and when I go for something, I go for it. I was interested in it so much just for my skateboarding, for myself, and to spread to my friends. But in those first few days of going raw, I was like, I want to do this up for a career. I want to spread this message. I want to live it, be it, and show other people that they can feel this, you know, that they can be in this state all the time.
Cool. What's your experience been over the years on 80-10-10 type of a low-fat raw vegan diet? What sort of changes and improvements do you keep seeing year after year?
You know, just getting more honed in on what works best for me, you know, because I've been doing this for 10 years now. I basically started in the middle of my schooling. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist, and, you know, finding out more and more about myself really is what is a bit about. Like, I really consider the raw food diet a vortex of positive change. People look at it like they think like it's a panacea, like it's going to fix everything. Well, no, it just brings everything to the surface, or a lot more to the surface, for you to recognize, love, and accept, and work and move through. So, you know, whether it be social circumstances, like when I first got into it, you know, being around people that I used to do old habits with was a huge challenge. You know, if I went out to a bar when I first got into, that was a huge challenge. Or if I traveled on a road trip, or if I went to a restaurant, these were all really huge challenges. Yeah. And now it's nothing. You know, I've come through doing it so many different ways. Now it's just like fun. Now I just have a lot of fun. Another huge thing would be like moving away from intellectual nutrition and moving more into intuitive nutrition, you know, and really coming to ease around food, having a healthy relationship with food instead of having like a intellectual kind of drive towards what I should eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Has there been a time over the last 10 years that you've run into a situation that you couldn't get enough raw food and you've had to resort to cooked food or anything like that?
Well, the closest that I would say would be in my first year, and in my first year, it was, you know, I'd been vegan, I think like a year and a couple months, and vegetarian for like 4 years at that time, then, or at least three and a half years. And I went on a road trip with a bunch of friends whom I had, you know, grew up skating and like drinking and partying with together, and like we went on this big skateboarding trip to California. And I had very little money. I had like a budget of $2 a day. I had no business being there on that kind of a budget. And by about day 8, I had no money, and I was too proud to ask for money, for help, or anything like that. And I was trying to just eat raisins basically because that's all I could afford, and I didn't even have money for water. And it was just a nightmare. And I was already at a very low body weight because I was in my first 8 months of raw, and I didn't understand fully my caloric needs, especially because I was super active. So I hit a base. Like, I really got down to like, I think I got down to like 155. Like right now I sit like 175, 180. So I was a lot lighter, and I started to feel psycho. Like I started to feel psychotic because I was just so low, and I was like watching all my friends drink and smoke and eat McDonald's and like have so much fun. And I was like, it was my first time in this trying social circumstance. And so although I could have found money and probably like, you know, asked them for money, instead I like almost lost. I snuck off and I ate fast food burgers. Something I hadn't done for like 4 years, and I absolutely hated myself. It was a very potent experience for me. And I really did learn that, it's more the emotion we hold to it, the judgment we hold to it, that affects us a lot more than the physical act of eating, because it went through me in a few days and it wouldn't have been a big issue, but I held on to that for a long ass time. Other than that, like, I kind of get what you're saying. In terms of like running into a situation where I don't have food, because to me that kind of rings like a backup plan or something like that. Like for me, like a backup plan has just been to breathe and just to feel what I feel, because in my understanding of human needs and food needs and nutrition, if we feel anxious, it's not really hunger. So I'd rather just come to a calm, clear state, have some water and wait. If I have to skip a meal on occasion, not like every day or every week, but if I have to skip a meal, that's my backup. I've never, in all my travels, found that like, oh my God, I can't get food, I'm going to starve, and had to eat something else. To me, like, raw is my preference, so much so that I would prefer to miss a day or two of food rather than eat cooked food. Just because from my own experience, I noticed that lowers my vibration a lot more and is to detriment to my full body, like my body spirit kind of experience, rather than just being with self and moving through the emotions and things that come up in those times.
Right, cool. How do you see the whole matter of the calories? Because there's this whole section of people advising people just eating unlimited calories and just force it in and stuff it in. How you've seen over the years, on your experience and watching other people, on the matter of calories when it comes to a low-fat raw vegan diet?
Well, to me, there's absolutely no question that the calorie model is as close as we can get to understanding, body weight fluctuations. There are other things for sure, like holding emotions and stuff like that, or body toxicity that can come into effect, or metabolism. Those things can come into effect. But in reality, if you're eating more calories than you need, you're going to gain weight. If you eat less than you need, you're going to lose weight. And everyone's on a different scale dependent upon a great number of factors. Their genetics, their digestive system, how much they're actually able to absorb, the foods they're choosing, even how fast they're eating, if they're chewing it well, if they're swallowing down humps. And then, of course, their activity level, right? If they're really active, they're going to require a heck of a lot more calories. For myself, my caloric needs fluctuate anywhere between like 2,000 to 5,000 calories plus, dependent upon how active I am. And I definitely believe in a diet of abundance, where you're eating as much as you possibly desire, and even a bite more. It's hard to overdo it. The only time I really see people gaining weight on this type of a diet is either A, if they're predominantly eating dates or bananas, and that's really it. Like, they're like eating dried dates one after another, and usually in conjunction with that, eating for emotional reasons. So they're feeling shitty, they're like really depressed, and they're just like eating, or they're like mindlessly eating. They're not conscious at all. It's just like a distraction. So I'll just pound this back, pound this back. So what I find really is, if we come into a calm, balanced state when we're truly hungry and eat nourishing whole foods that have some water content, when hungry till full, no exception, as much as we want, weight stays pretty even. It's just, again, those emotional reasons are eating a lot of dried fruit or a lot of nuts and seeds that are really high in calories that I see people gain weight.
Yeah, that's so true. How do you experience over the years the whole matter of the macronutrient ratios, that, for example, the amount of fat? How do you see for yourself, and what do you see in general? That is it important to always keep the fat under 10%, or periodically go way above that, or how do you see the whole matter of overt fats?
Well, I love them. I really do. My favorite over fats are probably coconut, and then maybe durian and avocado, and maybe hemp seeds, pumpkin seeds. I think that Doug Graham, he coined the phrase 80-10-10, right? But he didn't come up with those numbers himself. That's throughout nutrition. That's like throughout a whole side of nutrition anyway, right? Talking about a lower fat diet being our natural diet. Now, when you look to nature, the way I look at it, you look to nature, and what does nature provide? It provides high carbohydrate, low fat plant foods. Probably 9 months out of the year, maybe 3 months out of the year, you get some avocados and nuts and seeds. Maybe only even 2 months of the year during the late fall, And so for me, 80-10-10 isn't about every day, every meal, making sure it's exactly 80-10-10. But over the term of the week, month, year, having a general ratio. I might have a day where it's 15, maybe even 20, and I might have some days where it's like way under, but it all evens out. So, for myself, I tend to, if it's really cold in the winter and, the seasonal variety of fresh fruit is a little lower, I may need a little bit more fat, but it all fluctuates. To me, it's not a really big deal. Instead, what I do is I enjoy what I choose to enjoy and then observe what I feel from that. And what I've definitely found is that, again, if I'm eating very simple, low fat, and often no fat, I feel like I'm on rocket fuel. I feel like I can just like I want to be active and run around a ton. The more fat I add, the more I feel like I'm kind of conserving, going through that fall cycle where I'm kind of building up and relaxing and rejuvenating my body in a different way. So I think all of them are great. I think having a little bit more fat in some instances may benefit you, if you're being really active and need kind of a cool down period, or if you're in the winter months where it can be a little bit more natural to have a teeny bit more of it as well.
Do you see them as necessary part of the overall diet, or could a person be better off without them at all in the long run?
Well, there aren't really any examples that I know of people doing really long term with no overt fats. I mean, when you look at the micronutrients of whole plant foods that are lower fat, it would seem that we could definitely get along without any if we ate enough of all the other food. If we're eating enough fruits and vegetables, that we can totally get along with it. But to say that it's better to have none, I think that's subjective, right? It depends for what reason. What are you looking to? Like if you're like an athlete, like a really long endurance athlete, you always want to be burning through stuff really quickly and easily. Maybe, I don't know, but for me, it's not like I'm not looking to improve it. It's just like take the fruits and vegetables and lower amounts of nuts and seeds for me that I enjoy and enjoy it. For me, that works. If that answers your question.
Yeah, indeed. How do you see the importance of greens in the diet daily or in general in regards to overall health and energy, and especially oral health and health of your gums and teeth? How do you see greens playing a role in that, and different amounts? How you've experienced that over the years?
I think that's a really great question, and it kind of has a couple angles to it. I think greens are a really important addition to the daily diet, or at least to the weekly diet, monthly diet. I definitely, in times of like really good quality, plentiful fruit, I've gone a month with 0 greens and felt totally great. It wasn't because I was trying to avoid greens. It was because that was what I was genuinely led to. I was eating tons of tomatoes, which is kind of a little bit more closer to the green kind of balance of minerals rather than fruit anyway. But I was eating, just tons and tons of the best fruit, and that's what my taste buds led me to. I believe in intuitive eating and increasing the exposure to different types of greens, finding the ones you love the most. Because I found bok choy and Napa cabbage to be some of my absolute favorites, where I can eat 2 or 3 or 4 pounds of those a day and love it. And then I might go a couple days where I don't really want any, So to me, greens are basically bringing a little bit of alkaline mineral balance. Some people talk about our fruits not being what they used to be, or the soil not being what it used to be. Maybe in a perfect utopian world where we're stress-free, we have the cleanest air and water, we're picking right off the tree, our greens need maybe lower. Some people would say we always needed greens, but I'd say that greens nowadays help buffer that out a bit. We require potentially a bit more greens than we used to in order to meet that alkaline mineral balance. And as far as tooth health goes and stuff like that, I definitely think that greens, again, they really help buffer out the acidity. In the first few years of going on a raw food diet, people are moving through a lot of acidity, not only freeing up actual wastes within the body, but moving through acidity because they're emotional, they're having a hard social time, and everything's coming up. So it's just that's stressful, and all stress brings up extra acidity in the body, which we need to alkalize, right? So in the first few weeks, months even years of the diet, I think that eating a lot of greens and even green smoothies and green juices can be really, really beneficial to help kind of buffer that out and meet those alkaline mineral needs. Chewing greens as well, it's incredibly good for the teeth, so for some people I recommend, especially if they have any tooth issues, to chew just even a handful or 2 handfuls of greens until it's complete paste and swallow it after every fruit meal. And in general, it's good to brush and or floss and swish out with your saliva and water.
Yes, good advice. What would be your advice to people if they were new to the diet and eating fruit made their teeth sensitive or hurt, or what would you advise to people to kind of work past that to improve?
Well, I've had about probably 4 times in the last 10 years where I've had a tooth or two that got sensitive. Usually if I was eating pineapple or dates, those are the 2 biggest offenders. And for me, it only lasted about 2-3 days, and then it passed by. It happened to me once when I was eating tomatoes in high quantity. I was eating 10 pounds a day for 2 weeks straight, and then I got a little pain in a tooth. And what I did in that instance, I stepped back from those foods that actually gave me pain in my tooth. I chewed a little bit more greens, focused a little bit more on the more dense leafy greens and chewing them really well and brushing my teeth, and then it went away. So, I mean, my most easiest of advice would be chew a little bit more greens, make sure you're brushing and flossing, and step away from any of those fruits that are causing any issues, whether it's nuts and seeds because they can stick to your teeth, or dates, or something like pineapple, which myself, again, I've found can be a little bit tough on the tooth.
Yeah, for sure. It's so hard to get ripe pineapple, truly ripe, because otherwise it just burns your teeth and tongue. It's really...
that can be pretty hard.
Yeah, and people oftentimes doesn't learn from the one time. They just keep doing that till it hurts them bad enough.
Yeah, no, we learn pretty slow. We like to torture ourselves,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And this whole big controversial thing in the whole health movement, how do you see salt in general? What's been your experience with salt, and is it, in your view, poison in any quantity, or how do you see the whole matter of salt and the need?
Salt. Myself, anyone who really craves salt, if I had a consulting client who's I just crave salt, what about Himalayan sea salt? What I would recommend is stepping away from salt. Instead, in the morning, having, juice a pound of celery right off the bat. You have your water, you have a pound of celery or a liter of celery juice, and then at every meal have a bit of greens. At dinner, maybe have a stew with a bunch of greens. And do that for the first week, where you're getting a lot of organic sodium. The second week, if you want, you can tone it down a little bit, and from there on out, just eat at the point where, if you're craving salt, recognize that, add a little bit more green juice or add a little bit more greens to your meals, and see how that feels. Because what I notice with anyone I've ever coached is even a little bit of salt brings down their enjoyment and the fine-tuned taste buds that bring out the natural appreciation of whole, ripe, fresh, raw, organic plants. So a little bit of salt always ends up being more. I've never seen anyone who's I just put 1 sprinkle. It's sprinkle, sprinkle, and then the next time sprinkle, sprinkle. They're 5, sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. It's an excitotoxin. It really is, right? Put salt on an open wound. Put salt in your eye. Put salt, on a slug.
It just shrivels up.
It shrivels up, it on contact, it kills, right? It's not really that good. It's used to preserve food, to make sure there's no bacterial growth, right? I mean, if you want to pickle yourself, go ahead. It's touted for its mineral content, yet it contains inorganic minerals. Go eat some dirt. You're not going to get the minerals from it, right?
Yeah.
You need the plant. The plant and the root hair of the plant, in conjunction with bacteria on the root hairs, converts those inorganic minerals into organic minerals that our body can use. So if we're eating enough organic minerals from whole plant foods, we don't crave those inorganic kind of exciting sources that trick our body into thinking we're getting what we need. And it shows, because you eat a bit of salt, you puff up. You know, I know if I eat a bit of salt, you retain water, you puff up, because your body's solution to pollution is dilution, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
it's being polluted, it's being poisoned, it's going to dilute so that there's not a higher toxic load.
Yeah,
So I stay away from salt.
it's no wonder that people, no matter what diet they tend to have, B12 issues, because they all tend to eat salt, regardless if they're vegan or paleo or whatnot, or raw foodies. They always tend to have salt in the diet, and can't be that good for your intestinal flora. So
True. You know, isn't this funny? Because I'll admit I had never had a connection between salt and B12, and I can't correlate and say, yes, that's a big factor, but it's an interesting hypothesis and something that'd probably be good to look at, because I would guess that salt could definitely affect the flora, and who knows from there, right? But
right. How do you see over the years, has it changed much your need to drink water, the amount? Like there's this whole amount of people advising people to drink copious amounts of water, even if there's no really real need. How do you see that whole matter of drinking water compared to just eating high water content fruits and so forth?
Well, you know, I mean, your water needs are going to go up in relation to your exercise levels and the quantity of high carbohydrate, low water fruits you eat, as well as it's going to go up the more toxic load you carry. So in general, you know, if you're new to the diet, you're going to require more water than if you've been on the diet for months, years, and longer. You know, if you're an athlete working out in the desert and sweating your balls off, you're going to need a lot more water. You know, if you're eating bananas and dates all the time, you're going to need a lot more water. Water needs fluctuate and vary dependent upon so many factors, both those personal ones as well as, you know, environmental and elevation and all those different things. So, you know, myself, I've seen my water needs go up and down dependent upon where I'm at and what's going on. In general, for me, I drink a cup or two of water in the morning, and often that's it. You know, if I'm really active and I'm sweating in the midday sun, I'll drink more and then I'll eat my fruit. You know, we definitely need a functional level of hydration in order to really smoothly absorb the carbohydrates from our food. So even if we're eating watermelon, if we're dehydrated, we'd be better off having a cup of water first and then eating watermelon. You know, so I wouldn't recommend eating food when we're thirsty, but I wouldn't also really recommend just chugging water if we're really hungry. You know, so I mean, I wouldn't even recommend chugging water in general. So just like anything with food or with water, my personal recommendations and what I do myself is, if I'm thirsty, drink water till I'm not thirsty, maybe a sip more. Same thing with food, right? If I'm hungry, eat until I'm totally satiated, maybe a bite or two more. You know, and for me that works. The ratio of non-sweet fruits you eat is also going to definitely bring into balance how much your water needs are. You know, things like tomatoes and cucumbers, they have structured non-sweet water that definitely is very hydrating and alkalizing as well. You know, they have a really nice electrolyte and mineral balance, and I think they're the best source of water you can get, that and coconuts, you know. So myself, I eat a boatload of tomatoes, and that's generally where I'd say the bulk of my really hydrating water comes from. And then otherwise I get enough water from other fruits and vegetables that my overt water, just like glasses of water needs, goes down quite a bit compared to some other people.
Cool. How do you experience in regard to sleep? Have you noticed that your sleep requirements have reduced after being on the raw food diet for so long versus when you were eating more of a sad diet, and the importance of timing it? Like, do you have the habit of getting early nights, or how do you experience it versus going late at night to sleep versus early nights, and your performance in result to those?
For sure, I feel like if I get to bed before midnight, preferably between 10 and 11, and wake up when I naturally wake up, I feel my best. You know, if I wake up and I feel like rolling over, I feel better if I go back to sleep than if I just force myself to get out of bed. I don't think that my sleep needs have changed like super drastically. I mean, I would guess that my needs would be a little less now than when I was eating sad, because I'd be sleeping off the food I was eating. Um, but in general, you know, I mean, I think I've just become more aware of it, more aware of the impact it has on me, and more aware of my keen desire to feel the best I possibly can. So if I'm doing anything that's going to make me feel less, I could actually make it worse by just worrying about it and thinking about it. But as time's gone on, I've become conscious of that as well, and said, I'm going to let go of that and just do what works best for me in the moment as it fluctuates. And, you know, I'm a creative person. I do a lot of, you know, like ebooks and videos and stuff. And sometimes that creativity pours out at 11 or 12 or 1 in the morning. And I find myself doing that at that time when it's really fresh and alive in me. And so then I sleep until 10, you know, but
Yeah.
so, you know, I don't really believe in definites or black and white. You know, I just kind of feel like floating in the moment, moving with what's alive in you and with your needs that are current in the moment, for me works best. But in general, yeah, a couple hours before midnight, when it's really dark, and then waking up with the sun or just after the sun, I feel the best.
Have you noticed there being any difference in leaving several hours of not eating before going to bed versus eating just before going to bed? Have you noticed that to be an issue on fruit-based diet?
I just feel 1,000 times better if I go to bed with either an empty stomach or very close to an empty stomach. So yeah, you know, if I eat at 6 and go to bed by 9 or 10, I'm feeling great. You know, if I eat at 8:39 and go to bed at 10, you know, I don't feel quite as good. I wake up feeling a little bit, you know, just a little bit less chipper and poppy, you know. So
Yeah.
I think it definitely makes a big difference to make sure that you give yourself at least 2 or 3 hours to digest, and maybe more if you eat fatty stuff or a heavy meal.
Yeah, for sure. How big of an importance you've put on having a high level of fitness in overall health puzzle? How big do you regard that as, having a good level of fitness versus just, you know, focusing on the food and stuff, which is pretty easy to do, that people new to good lifestyle are very,
For sure.
they get passionate about it, and then they tend to focus on that only, and they forget all the other
Yeah.
aspects of health. So
I think every single link in the chain of health, you know, from the fitness to the sleep to the fresh air to the water to the loving connections to the food, you know, I think all of those things have just as much importance as the other. You know, it's just generally because we find ourselves in a place where one link is really weak, where we're really off balance in one of those, that we focus so much on it and think it's the best. We notice all these results, we're like, this is the master, we have to pay to this. But, you know, like, eventually, you know, all of those things are important. You know, and fitness, you know, we're designed to be fit. You know, you look out into nature, like even the sloth that looks like it's like really lazy and slow, well, it's moving all the time, and it's strong, and it's carrying its weight upside down, and like, you know, animals are fit. You know, we're meant to be fit, and in fact, in order to be truly healthy, we have to be fit, because the more energy you expend, the more food you need to eat, and hence the more total nutrition you take in. So, you know, high level of fitness, well, you know, that's totally, again, that's subjective, right? So I think stretching your fitness levels in any and every moment. So, you know, if walking down the street is really tough for you, doing that, you know, and stretching it by walking a little bit further or carrying a backpack the next time. You know, if you're already an athlete, you know, and you can lift 100 pounds, well, you know, slowly upping that and increasing your fitness levels in the ways that you want to, whether that's strength or endurance or flexibility or a combination of all those. Definitely a combination is going to be the best for overall fitness. It helps immensely, not only with that need to get in more food and more nutrition, but also just with hormonal balance and feeling better, and, you know, just brightening your day and bringing you a sense of accomplishment as well. So I think fitness is definitely important. But just like the food, you know, forcing anything, in my mind, isn't really the best move. You know, trusting your body. If you're like, I just want to sleep, well, maybe sleep until you feel like working out or moving your body, and slowly grow in increments until you can expand your fitness.
right. Have you noticed the difference between having an organic movement that you're active throughout the day instead of being inactive most of the day, and then sort of supplementing that with half an hour or hour of exercise, for example? Have you experienced that it's much more beneficial and natural to just be active throughout the day, to have organic movement, play around,
Yeah.
go for a walk, go for a hike, and to have fun,
Yeah,
active
yeah.
life?
I think you said it right there, man. Having fun, like organic movements, playing, like acting like a kid and just doing the things that make you feel good. Like for me, like I love to dance, I love to skateboard, I like to do yoga, I like to, rock climb, I like to swim, I like to jump, I like to blah, we'll do whatever, right? It's just like, finding those things you really enjoy and placing them, in between the places that you're eating, basically, getting some kind of activity between that. I think that's for me the most beneficial. Some people like regimented, workouts and stuff that's like, no pain, no gain. Well, that's not my thing, but whatever floats anyone's boat. I think it's good to know yourself and just to be true to what really lights you up and makes you, have fun and get you closer to the results you're looking for.
What do you learn through your experience, and what would be your advice to people overcoming social issues in regards to eating a raw vegan diet, the whole peer pressure and all that stress about what people think about you and all that stuff? How do you go around that?
Well, there's two different avenues. One, if it is from the outside and there are people giving you a really hard time, that's one. And the other is if it's just within you and you're having a hard time because your thoughts. So I'll start with external, right? So for me, if people were giving me a hard time and being like, hey, just try this or just do this, or like, why are you doing that? This doesn't make sense, or like, I'm concerned for you. You got to eat meat. I'd first kind of look to what they're feeling and needing in the moment. They're probably feeling isolated themselves, or feeling like you're not one of them, or not really being conscious of what they think your needs are. So meeting that head on, saying like, hey, like, I appreciate that you're concerned for me, but right now this is what I feel is best for me, and I'd really like some support, because it's not the easiest thing, right? So trying to meet what they're feeling as well as share what you're genuinely feeling. And I've found 100%, like if it's a friend, right, or if it's a family member, and you say like, look, I know this doesn't make sense to you, or maybe this doesn't make sense to you, but for me this is really real, this is very important, and I have a real need to try this out and to move with this. And it's not easy, it's not easy, especially when you say this or that. I feel really challenged. It makes it a lot harder, and I could really use some support. Would you be willing to read this book, or would you be willing to just suspend judgment and let me move through this for a while and come into my own understanding through the experiential kind of growth that I'm having right now? And if they actually are your friend, or if they're your family, they're going to want to support you. If you can really be honest and just like share, that it isn't the easiest thing in the world in that moment. And I always think that kind of just sharing genuinely what we're feeling from the heart, not making it about them, making it about ourselves. Like, this is about me and what I want to get, and that really rings true, and that can really help a lot. Now on the other end, if it's like, kind of you're feeling uncomfortable, maybe they're not even saying anything, but you feel like, oh, like I'm being mean because I'm not eating mom's meatloaf, or like, grandma made her favorite souffle and I'm not eating it, and I feel so, whatever. Or you're going out to a restaurant, you're like, oh, I feel so anxious and shy. Well, what I tend to do is focus on that it's not, like, food isn't really that big of a deal. It's just food, like, let it go. It's like we make everything 1,000 times bigger in our head than it is in reality. And you look around at everyone else at the restaurant, and they're eating different things. They're ordering different things on the menu. So what? Yours is raw, or it doesn't have animal products. Like, if we make a huge deal about it in our head and think we're like so pious and like, super special and better than everyone else, well, we're going to separate ourselves and look and be in awkward places, and right. We're going to emit vibrations, and it's not attractive. If you're feeling awkward and like, oh, like, what are you eating? You're bad, like, it's not attractive. It's not going to make anyone else want to do what you're doing, right? If instead you focus on connection and the real reason you're there, to share space and time and energy with each other, and you come back into your heart and like, yeah, sure, you can be proud of what you're doing and be like, hey, like I feel good about this because I'm choosing to be more compassionate in my meal, and then spread that compassion to everyone else no matter what they're doing. It's going to be a lot more inviting and bring a lot more ease to yourself and to anyone else around you than if you have any thoughts of judgment or like anxiousness or irritability, anything in there with you. So does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely makes sense. People often just tend to make, yeah, like you said, they make everything harder than it has to be, and that just leads to all kinds of problems and all that stress. I mean, stress alone can kill you if it just goes on long enough.
We're powerful creators, we're absolutely powerful creators, and what we think about comes about. And if we're like thinking about stress and thinking about how different we are from each other, then yeah, guess what? You're going to experience that. You're going to feel different. You're going to feel alienated. People aren't going to want to be around you as much, and they're going to think you're a weirdo. But if instead, just like, we're all the same, I'm just making a little bit of a different choice, and I feel so blessed by it. Let's be happy and stoked and be a great example of that energy, right? And for me, that's been a huge difference, just being really conscious of what I'm feeling and what I'm needing in the moment, and then finding something to fulfill that need, right? That is separate from food, because yeah, food's meant to nourish us, and it can be entertaining, it can be fun, but a lot of people equate food with, with nurturing or with connection, just like, oh, I used to eat this food with my grandma, and like I can't have it, so I can't connect anymore. Well, it doesn't have to be with the food. You can be eating something different and look your grandma in your eyes and tell her that you love her, and that you like love spending time and energy, and that you're sorry. I feel sorry. Like, I love that you make this, and I used to love making it with you, but right now I'm feeling like this suits me best. Are you okay with that? Like, I feel really good, and I just love spending time with you. It doesn't matter what we eat. Then you're on a completely different level of connection, and you completely surpass that, like need to be eating the same thing in order to feel some kind of connection, because that's just all in the head anyway. It's all nostalgia, story in the past, right?
Yeah, it's a win-win situation. People often tend to cling on to the nostalgia, and that leads to the whole train wreck that it often is. People rather die than change their diet or whatever simply because of nostalgia. This is what they've done in the past, and they're scared of anything else.
So true.
There's always the component of just irrational fear, and I feel
fear finds blinds.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the eye for an eye. If everyone pokes their eyes out, nobody's there to see.
True, man. It's true. Yeah, the more we can authentically step into heart space in the moment and share what we're alive with, and connect with others on that level, there's more compassion, there's more understanding, and there's a higher kind of vibration in that kind of sharing, instead of being locked down in fear. And it stands truth with experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into other kind of relationships outside of friendships and family. How do you see the importance or non-importance of relationships, more intimate relationship as a couple, as that role in overall health and performance and all that? How do you see that as a necessary, or would person be better off alone if they feel like that? And how do you advise to people how to find that special fruity someone in their life?
Well, I think to each person their own cycle in this life, and if in that moment they feel intuitively led to being by themselves, maybe even complete solace, or otherwise just, really working on themselves before they look outside to try and complement themselves, that can be very, very powerful, because when we come into a relationship, the less baggage we have, potentially, the more we have to give to the other person.
Yeah.
Now, that said, people can come together and help heal each other through, mirrors and looking at each other, and just like having that compassionate arm around the shoulder and having that unconditional love and acceptance of the other person and who they are. so they can allow themselves to come into that unconditional love and acceptance of who they are and heal themselves. So I think it's just an intuitive thing, and I'm not like a huge like seeker. I believe more in just letting everything be and allowing things to unfold and come to us as they're needed. So if your interest is to meet other people, well, come into groups and places where there's a lot of people doing similar things, or they're doing moving in the way and talking in the way and eating in the way that you feel you're best doing, and see how that goes. So I think that relationship with self is just as important as relationship with other, and that through relationships with others we can definitely come to know ourselves better and come into deeper healing. So it just becomes that balance of what you really need in that moment, and also just being in gratitude with what is in the moment. If you are by yourself, being in gratitude for that and moving with and working through that energy as much as you can in that moment. And then of course, that'll lead you at some point into some kind of a relationship, and then again moving with that, right? So I think it's just a dance. I think it's just a dance, and I think I kind of danced around that question a little bit, but I think both can be of benefit to anyone in any time, dependent upon what their needs are and what the reality is. Because if you're not in a relationship and you just go, "Oh, I want to be in one," well, it's not really serving you so much. Like you could be working on yourself, and through that meet someone else as well. So back to gratitude.
Yeah, and it's so totally different to be alone than being lonely. They're totally different matter.
Yeah.
People often confuse those, and they just try to I mean, there's so many people who are there. For example, they're married, they have 5 children, and they're still lonely, in that whole situation. So
loneliness is in the mind and unmet needs. Like not knowing how to meet those needs, and communication and exploration, and otherwise just being really honest and truthful with self, with what you're feeling and needing, and allowing yourself to express that either just for yourself or to others, is the keystone of making sure that you have like a good balanced relationship with each other or self.
Yeah, for sure. How would you advise if someone came to you like, "Hey Chris, I want to move to somewhere where there's best fruit in the world all year round"? What would you do? What would be your advice? Where would you go personally if you had to pick one place on earth to have the best fruit and the best suit for your needs and lifestyle? Where would it be?
Year round, okay? Probably maybe California, and I'm kind of biased because of it's relatively warm all year. There's not like a crazy winter or rainy season. They have really good fruit all year round, really good shipping, and good skateboarding. So that comes into my personal thing. I love Costa Rica. I really love it out here, and you can get good fruit year round. There's a bit of a long rainy season, but it's not bad. I think if I took away the skateboarding, probably Costa Rica. I've heard Thailand is amazing as well, but any tropical region where there's a lot of fruit is going to have kind of a pretty intense rainy season, so it just depends on your preference. Myself, I'd prefer to travel. I'd prefer to live in 2 or 3 places for 3 to 5 months each, and just kind of mix it up during each season. But both of those places are pretty amazing. I mean, Florida's pretty amazing, Hawaii's pretty amazing, Mexico's pretty amazing. And I'm sure there's a lot of other places I haven't been that are incredibly amazing, right? But I'd encourage anyone to travel a bit and take extended stays and find out and talk to people who live there before making any drastic moves. Because I've seen some people move to the tropics thinking it's like, I'm going to paradise. But there's always your own shit wherever you go. So if you don't, if you don't know the realities of the like year-round weather and the politics and relations with other people, if you don't know the language, there's so many things that can come with it, right? So I think it's good to kind of move around and try a bunch of different things before really settling down.
Yeah, that's really, traveling really brings invaluable experience, and that's all we really know is what we've experienced. So if you had to choose one fruit that you'd have to live for the rest of your life, which would it be?
That's horrible. That's just mean. That's just mean. if you could give me, one sweet fruit, one non-sweet fruit, I could maybe do it. But if it's just one fruit, wow, like, oh, it maybe would be banana, or mango, like cherimoya or persimmon's up there too. If I could have a non-sweet fruit, it'd probably be tomato. Like if I could have mangoes and tomatoes, I'd be fine forever because I can eat them separately or mix them together.
Right.
But just having one, that's just cruel, man. That's just cruel. Variety is the spice of life. Having a few different varieties. I've overdone mangoes. I've loved mango. I've eaten them predominantly like as my main calorie source for like 4 or 5 months straight. Following the mango season between two countries, and got to a point where I was like, I don't really want mangoes. So if I just had mangoes, I know there'd be a point where I'd get sad.
Yeah. Yeah, tends to happen.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the importance of being mono meals most of the time or all the time, or mixing it up, or how do you see the whole matter of food combining and all that issue?
Well, I find food combining incredibly important for optimal digestion, absorption, and assimilation. So if you have any issues with any of those, digestion, absorption, assimilation, food combining and or even better mono meals is huge. And I find that in terms of really fine tuning your caloric needs, really understanding how much food you require to eat, mono eating and mono days is like just eating bananas for a week, it'll really hone you in to how much calories you really need, because when you make recipes, there's a certain element of entertainment. There's a certain element of like kind of like a festive kind of like overstimulation of your taste buds where you're prone to eat more, especially if you add some green onion, or if you add like a hot pepper, then you're even more prone to eat more than you need, right? So
Yeah.
if you're just eating one food at a time or a really simple recipe, then you're more prone to actually eating exactly around the amount that you need. Because when you're mono eating, when you're getting near the end of your meal, that food becomes non-appealing. Well, you're eating bananas, all of a sudden it's like, I don't want bananas anymore. And your body's like, I've had enough bananas for this meal. Well, if you just sit back, you let that digest, it's going to move through you really smoothly. But if instead, you have like 3 foods and you overeat, it's the potential that it's going to sit longer than it needs to and digest not as well is higher, right?
Yeah, for sure. How would you counteract, or how would you respond to that if someone just said that if you have to follow certain specific food combining guidelines or etc., that it just means that you have weak digestion if it bothers you, if you don't have certain perfect kind of food combining or mono mealing? How would you respond to that if some people would say that it just means you have weak digestion? If you have strong metabolism and digestion, it doesn't matter how you combine it.
Well, I think a lot of people who come into food combining do have weaker digestive systems and weaker absorption because they've been abusing their body for a long period of time and not caring about it, just eating anything haphazardly. I think if what you're proposing someone else would say was true, then antacids wouldn't be a multi-billion-dollar product. It's like one of the most common products. It's sold all over. It's in the commercials all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
cancers and abnormalities of the entire digestive system or diseases of the digestive system are rampant. It's all over the place. So the evidence just isn't there. The first time you eat something crappy like that when you're a little kid, you eat some stuff all mixed up crappy together. Yeah, you get like an earache, or you puke it back up, or you get diarrhea. But you do it over and over and over and over. Well, the body stops reacting. It's the same as the first cigarette. You cough, this feels crappy. A couple packs later, you're just like, oh, this is nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that your body is like stronger and better. It means that it's just suppressing those symptoms because it knows you're not going to do anything about it. So I don't know. I think that anyone could benefit from simplifying their the number of ingredients in their recipes and simplifying their day. Eating a mono meal a day, or eating 2 a day, or having a week where they just eat mono meals. That doesn't necessarily need be eat bananas for a week. That can be melons for breakfast, mangoes or bananas for lunch, mangoes for dinner. You can follow it up with You know, sequential eating is incredibly powerful as well, just eating in sequence, starting with the highest water content and then moving to the more dense foods like greens, and then fats would be last.
Yeah, for sure. What's your experience been in regard to fasting, and maybe that what would you advise for a person if they were interested in doing a water fast, for example? That would it be best to, for example, be for a time in a low-fat, raw vegan diet before attempting a water fast, or what's your take on the
Oh,
whole issue of fasting?
you know, in general, most people could fast for a day to 3 days and be absolutely fine. You know, with that, you know, it's good to consult your doctor, find out if you have any abnormalities. You know, if you like have diabetes, for example, or if you have some kind of a heart issue. You know, there could be some contraindications. If you have, you know, kidney or liver disease, you know, there can be contraindications. But in general, most people can safely fast 1 to 3 days and just basically take a break, just, you know, relax and rest and drink water. You know, it may be wise to take a week beforehand where you eat really clean and clear. If you eat like a McDonald's diet all the time, well, you know, if you just fast, you're going to feel some harsh symptoms of detox more than likely. You know,
Yeah,
they say the harder it is for you to fast, the more you need it, right? So the more anxious you get, the more irritable you get, the more headaches you get. Yeah, your body's going through a lot of junk. So
yeah,
if you want to make it easier on you, yeah, you know, it's about lifestyle. You know, optimally, we're living a lifestyle that doesn't require us to fast. But sometimes people abuse themselves to a degree where there's damage done that would benefit from fasting. And, you know, fasting is just what it's saying. It's a fast way to heal your body. It's complete rest. It's bringing every single enzyme in the body, everything to repair, right? It's like just repair maintenance mode, or repair mode rather than maintenance mode. So I think it's really potent, a really powerful tool. I've done many 1 and 2, 3 day fasts myself, and after doing many of those, I led myself on longer term fasts. But in general, you know, as a health practitioner, I can't recommend anyone go longer than 3 days without supervision, and it's a good idea to you know, have somebody with you who's experienced in leading fast and reading vitals, and otherwise just, you know, positive and knowledgeable and can, you know, call help or just be beside you if you have any strong emotions, so that you can help you move through that. You know,
yeah,
a lot comes during fasts. You know, a lot can come up during fasts, so it can be very, very powerful for sure. I believe in the power of fasting, and more so in just the power of having like a clean lifestyle, you know, because optimally we want to learn how to eat well, you know, and how to keep ourselves well. And if we're just focused on fasting but then go back into a crappy lifestyle, well, this is going to be a yo-yo, and that's not really good for our bodies. That's hard on us. That's harder on us, probably, than just staying at an even filter, you know. So
yeah,
I think obviously learning the lifestyle, applying the lifestyle, and then if you have a chronic condition that you can't heal or it isn't healing fast enough, consider a fast.
right. It's the same thing with almost all the different body signals. It always comes down to the interpretation that people have, like you said about fasting. Same to hunger. I mean, people have been taught to believe that it's real hunger if your stomach is hurting or growling, but that's exactly the time you shouldn't be eating. You should be let that phase pass and let the body cleanse and heal, rather than just stuff it down again.
Most people never experienced hunger. Most people have never experienced hunger in their lives. You know, it's just like their stomach growls, they're anxious, they're irritable, they have a headache, they're emotional, they're super happy. Shove food in, shove food in. Well, you know, you can't really experience really strong emotion and digest well. You know, so, you know, it's just like, you know, when you stop smoking cigarettes, all of a sudden you're craving a cigarette. Well, yeah, if you're like, oh, I'm craving a food, I feel so I gotta have it now. Well, your body's clearing out some waste. Allow it some space. You know, like I really do believe the hardest part of a raw food diet is coming to accept the feelings that come up and move through them. Allow them to pass through us with love and acceptance, rather than trying to push them down. Because if we push anything down, if we're pushing down that anxiousness, that irritability, we're pushing down that stomach gurgle, or we're pushing down even like crazy bliss, it's going to ferment. You know, just like anything, it's just going to ferment. It's going to get bigger. It's going to keep on knocking us on the head until all of a sudden it blows up and we're fully irrational or spouting out that toxic waste out of our mouths and spreading hate and whatever else, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to come into a calm, balanced state before we choose to eat.
Yeah, take responsibility for your emotions and learn to process them through rather than just trying to always hide it and mask it.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, we're taught to numb our emotions since birth.
Yeah.
You're crying, sucker. You're crying, no, don't cry. You shouldn't cry. You know, well,
Yeah.
what if you allowed yourself to feel those things? What if that's all completely okay? And through feeling them, we let them go, you know? And then we come back into calm and balance and we're ready to do everything else, you know? That's what I find absolutely the best, you know? Brings the most peace in your heart, you know? Brings the most compassion and brings the best results in terms of digestion and assimilation as well.
Yeah. This goes back to maybe more of a subjective absolutism or whatnot, but how do you see the matter of some people appearing to do better on a high raw diet versus an all raw diet, and what's your whole take on that? Is it usually just about people's social pressure or emotional things or such matters that people just make themselves believe that some cooked food is better than not having it in the long run?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a black or white answer. I think that a lot of the time it does come down to emotional things and comes down to preferences. You know, because you can read something and be like, this makes so much sense, but you still actually really want to be doing this. If you force yourself to do this, you're not going to be getting the best results in the world. And you come back here and you're like, wow, this really fits me better. This is what works. This is what works. Well, you know, I do believe that everyone is designed to live and thrive on a raw food diet. You know, I strongly, I mean, you look up to nature. That's what every animal does. You know, that's what we've done for the a way longer portion of time on our planet. I've heard like 99+% of our time on the planet we thrived on a food diet.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, you know, whether, you know, there's little particulars, right? You know, like the soil quality, like where we are, our emotional levels, our stress levels. You know, if we're eating insects or not. You know, because you know our closest primates eat insects, right? So there's so many little things, nutritional. I think the emotional aspect comes into it the hugest percentage, and just really being honest with ourselves with what we want. Because I don't believe in shoulds, you know, I don't believe in have tos, and some people put that on themselves.
Yeah.
And as soon as you should or shouldn't on yourself, you're gonna be living lower vibrations of health, right?
Yeah.
Now that said, again, I don't think there's a black and white, and I could hear some people saying, well, no, blah blah blah. Yeah, you know, there can be genetic things going on. There can be some like digestive issues going on. There can be, you know, whatever. There are exceptions to every situation, and there are some people that maybe they just digest that a little bit better. Maybe their digestive system is so bunged up and so hurt that non-enzymatic food that's been enzymatically killed by cooking it, is easier on their system. Well, yeah, you know, that might work better for them in the moment, but there are always options and alternatives, and that's where stuff like fasting can come in, where people can heal to a larger extent so that those highly enzymatic foods can rebuild the populations in our intestinal tract or stomach so that we can come into proper balance with raw food. Beyond that, yeah, you know, maybe there is exceptions. Maybe there is exceptions to that generality, and people have been so genetically kind of disrelated from their normal stance that maybe somebody does do better on cooked tubers, but I haven't really seen it when you consider all options, to be honest.
Yeah. How do you
all the preference, man. You know, like if you feel better and you enjoy eating cooked foods, that's awesome. You know, that's awesome. I have friends who they absolutely prefer to eat animal products. You know, they believe they need to. You know, there's nothing I could say. Well, good for you. You know, move through that until that doesn't fit you anymore, or live that life cycle out. You know, it's like, I'm not here to judge. You know, I'm not here to say that, you know, they're bad or that they should be doing this, because again, I don't really believe in the shoulds. It's just relative to your experience and to what you're looking to create. You know, and I think we're all here to create and move at the vibration that we are. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it, right?
Yeah. How do you see the role of doing regular blood tests and perhaps supplementation in some cases? How do you see the stance on supplements and overall doing blood tests to ensure that you're okay no matter what you're doing?
Well, I think that blood tests can be very valuable, especially for those around you. Like my family, they were concerned about me. They wanted to have blood tests. Having markers too, just having markers to see the trends, to see if you're like stable or going up or going down in certain measures and stuff like that. But it is only as valuable as the person who's reading it, you know, because you could have a standard doctor read it and flip out because he's never read a raw vegan's blood work and it's totally different from someone else's, you know, and he could be like, you're against this, you know. Well, even though that's not my experience, so my personal doctor read my stuff and he was like, oh my God, like, this is the best blood work I've ever seen, you know, like, I've gotten that result from basically everyone who's ever tested me, you know. You know, but again, you know, there are doctors who have read the blood work of thousands of raw foodists or vegans or raw vegans and omnivores and know how to read those subtle differences, right? And I think that's very vital as well. You know, so I think it can be useful. If you're feeling great, you get a blood test and all of a sudden there's something wrong on the blood test or the doctor says something wrong. Personally, I would take how I'm feeling first and then use that as like a guideline. Okay, well, maybe I'll research and look into this more, get more opinions rather than flip out, oh my God, well, I better take this stuff. You know, well, you know, I think supplementation has its place as well. You know, I'm not like anti anything really. I don't think that supplementation is the devil. We live in an unnatural world doing a lot of unnatural things and eating fruits and vegetables that aren't really as natural as they used to be. You know, so I think the plausibility that some people could benefit from supplementation at some times until they can gain balance in their holistic lifestyle, you know, upping the quality of fruit, in vegetables, you know, maybe growing some of your own and coming into more of an emotional balance, that it can be very beneficial. You know, there's common ones that people supplement, like vitamin B12 and vitamin D, and some people are talking about iodine and other things like that. And, you know, I mean, if you're in a deficiency situation or if you're in a situation where it may help, run the test. Give it a go. See how it works. You know, do tests later and see how your levels do. You know, my preference is to look for food and lifestyle aspects first, and otherwise supplement if it's like, if that's not going well, or if it's just like, hey, I'm curious, I'm going to check this out. Because again, I think having an attitude of like supplements are bad and at all costs avoid them, that can bring detriment as well. You know, so I think being just open to everything and moving with what resonates with you the most in the moment and letting go of fear or judgment around anything, I think that serves everyone best, really, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Day to day, what motivates and drives you to do what you do? What really gives you that spunk to just break it?
Well, I just, you know, I mean, it depends what I'm doing, right? I mean, if it's skateboarding, it's just the enjoyment of doing it. You know, I guess realistically, that's the biggest thing that motivates me, is just moving more and more and more with those things that light me up, that I just absolutely enjoy doing. You know, enjoy doing them for the sake of doing them rather than what I think I'll get out of them. You know, even the things that I love the most, like skateboarding, when I started doing it for reasons of what I thought I might get out of it, like, oh, maybe I'll go pro and I won't have to do this, or I stopped enjoying it as much. It became a job and it wasn't fun, you know? I love consulting. I love connecting with people. I love helping people. When I get, you know, people saying like, you know, you really made a difference in my life, that's the best gift in the universe. I can't ask for more than that. You know? And even though I love it so much, when I got myself doing 3-4 consults a day, 6 days a week, it became too much and it felt like a job and I stopped enjoying it. So I had to step back and be like, you know what, I love doing this, but not that much, you know, like not every second of every day. So I find that it all just comes down to balance, finding those things that really light you up, that you love, and doing them in the quantities that you enjoy them. If you stop enjoying it, step away and do other things, right? And I really do think that living in such a way where we're sharing in abundance those things that we love and helping others through that, like teaching each other, sharing with each other, that we all get everything we need and more. You know, we just raise each other up with that.
Yeah. What would be your top tips to people that they could do, no matter where on earth they were, to improve their health and quality of life and well-being of overall the whole planet?
Well, first, you know, whenever feeling anxious or irritable or, you know, coming into the head, whenever in the head, like judgmental or angry at someone, take a breath, come back into heart. That's it. Seriously, just take a breath, come back into your heart, and ask yourself, like, what am I feeling right now? Like, maybe something's triggering you. Like, what am I feeling right now? You know, and okay, what need isn't fulfilled in mine that I can serve myself and fill myself up with that bliss again? And, you know, it might be compassion, it might be connection, it might be, you know, understanding, and in any way we can search for that, you know, whether that's calling a friend, hugging a tree, taking a run, you know, whatever it is, you know, just coming back to heart and accepting what we're feeling and finding a way to fulfill our heart's needs, you know. Very often just even coming back into heart brings you into so much more balance and brings so much more joy into your life, just like, you know, just breathing into your heart, you know, that's amazing. That's one. Another would be, you know, find the fruits and vegetables that you love the most, the ones that you just absolutely love, and enjoy as much of them as you want. That's it, you know, just enjoy them, you know, like learn about food combining, learn about sequential eating, like, you know, grab a recipe book like My Frickin' Rawesome Recipes, you know, and find those things you love, right? The things that just light you up, and include more of them, you know. The third would be, you know, don't take things personally, right? It's like everyone's on their own path, everyone's doing their own thing, you know. Typically, if someone's lashing out at you or saying things about you, it's their reflection, you know. They're just insecure about something within themselves, and they're calling it out on you, right? So, you know, it pays to just, you know, give love back and step into your own heart again, and just move forward from there in a more compassionate way. Seek genuine connection, right? Seek genuine connection. So, like, talk with people, share with people, you know, what you're feeling and thinking and needing, and ask for, request it if need be. And otherwise, just, you know, connecting eye to eye, heart to heart with a good hug, you know, that's huge. And move your body every day, you know. Find some way to play, you know, find some way to play, whether it's by yourself or with others. That's great, you know. Just have fun. And I guess the last, don't take yourself so seriously, right? You know, the world's as fun as you make it. You know, if you make it super serious, well, guess what? You're going to be in a serious world with a lot of serious consequences, a lot of, you know, judgment and thought patterns and worries and fears, you know. But if it's all play and, you know, you're just having fun in a lighthearted way, life's a lot more fun. Things are a lot more fluid, and in my experience, things just, they come your way a lot easier, you know.
What suggestions you would have for people to check out resources to learn more about raw foods and veganism and healthier life in general, websites, books? What suggestions would you give to people as top places to check out?
Awesome. I mean, my website is one, of course. You know, I've got a lot of resources, lots of videos, lots of books. You know, I'll pat myself on the back for a second. You know, I like that stuff. And, I've found so many people, to be honest. You know, I mean, if you're just getting into the lifestyle, and if you're interested in, like, sharing this with, you know, family and friends, that book I mentioned, Fit for Life, the first book, Fit for Life, it's amazing. It's one I've given to so many people. If you're more kind of, you know, into the lifestyle already and you want to streamline it, and you're like, yeah, I'm into raw foods, I want to do it, 80-10-10. You know, the 80-10-10 diet is the best book out there on raw food nutrition and holistic living, period, in my opinion. You know, I've read tons and tons of books. I've been studying nutrition for 15, 16 years. I think it gets it all in a nutshell in the best, easiest possible way. Seeing it as a guideline, not a rule book, as a guideline, and taking it easy on yourself and moving at your own pace, it's great. It's an amazing book. With that, Doug Graham's website, foodandsport.com, it's awesome. You know, I really like Don Bennett's information as well. He's a little bit more analytical, kind of science-minded on it, and I think having that background and that information can be really helpful. I love Tim Van Orden. He's awesome. Running Raw project. I think it's runningraw.com. I believe Don Bennett's 101 health.org. Yeah, there's a lot of other people, you know, Rick Dina, he has some awesome stuff, you know, like watching YouTube channels. I like John Kohler's YouTube channel a lot. He's got a lot of really good information. There's so many people out there, you know. Fully Raw Christina has a lot of inspiration and recipe tips, and there's a lot of people out there spreading so much awesome information. I would just say, you know, like, check it all out, you know, move with who you resonate with, you know, and move and grow from there. Other books that are incredibly amazing that I'd recommend too is beyond words. You know, it's not necessarily nutritional, but it's kind of more a spiritual book about acceptance and love and, you know, letting go. And I find that's huge. Again, just as big as the raw food diet. You know, I love the books Conversation with God rather. I think they're really great books and can help open people's hearts and minds to a wider picture. Let's see, what are some other really good ones? I mean, the China Study is a big one, you know, that a lot of people talk about. It's pretty analytical, but it's really good. Yeah, those are probably some of the absolute main ones that I'd look at, just in terms of, you know, physical and mental, emotional, spiritual health. You know, and I think paying attention to all those things is really important. You know, like, again, we can get so fixated on food to solve all our problems, but really, sometimes the food just brings up all our problems. You know, so it's like, the more we learn about different ways to cope, the more we learn to express ourselves emotionally, the more we learn to connect with others, the more we learn to connect with ourselves. You know, like meditation and yoga and, like, you know, radical forgiveness and, like, all these different things can be so beneficial for our growth and, you know, our overall health.
Yes. And if people wanna get in contact with you or learn more about you, how can they do that?
Well, you can email me at info@therawadvantage.com or direct at chris@therawadvantage.com. My website, therawadvantage.com, has 3 free ebooks just for joining my mailing list and tons of resources. I'm always available. I offer all my consultations fully by donation, whether it's on phone or in person or on Skype. I absolutely love to connect and share, and in the hopes of being able to help. You know, whether that's just to help one let go or to find a new way to go. Right. So, absolute pleasure. The Raw Advantage. That's it, man. Also, I have a YouTube channel too. I have YouTube, and, you know, just, you can search The Raw Advantage, and I have Instagram, just, you know, at The Raw Advantage, you know, Twitter, all those things, all at The Raw Advantage. It's pretty simple.
Cool. Any closing thoughts or messages you'd have to anyone watching this?
Well, you know, what I'd say, if you're on the fence, you know, if you're wondering if you're worth it or if it's worth it to give it a try, you 100% are. You know, like, to me, loving foods, you know, like, the foods that Mother Nature gives us is love made form. You know, it's like, you eat that stuff and it just lights you up with more love. You know, it will lead you to a place where you're resonating higher, where you're moving through things a lot more easily, you know, and take it easy on yourself. You know, change isn't always easy, but, you know, it's through embracing change with love and acceptance and patience that we all grow. You know, so you're absolutely worth it. You know, give it a try. Treat yourself the best you possibly can. Just reach for the sky, because you're only going to grow from there and be able to help yourself and help others more from that. So that'd be my closing comments.
Great. All the links will be under this video. And Chris, thank you so much for giving your time and joining us on this great day. And hope you keep enjoying rest of the day and your stay in Costa Rica.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, man. Yeah, anytime too. Connect, reach out. You know, pleasure to share. It's been really cool to get to know you a little bit better here today, and hope that we actually get to meet up here in the next bit. Maybe when I come out to Europe. I'm not sure if you're coming to one of those festivals out there, whether it's you know, in Denmark or Slovenia or in London area or Woodstock. You know, so many great festivals to connect, right? So I hope to actually meet you in physical one day.
Yeah.
I hope you give me a.
Yeah, sure. For sure. Thanks so much for having this interview, and catch up next time.
That was good, man. Much love, Sammy. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.